Chinese authorities singled her out. They kept her at the airport for over 12 hours only because her Indian passport happens to be issued in Arunachal Pradesh, and China does not recognize Arunachal Pradesh. Indian government sources say a strong démarche was issued to the Chinese both in Beijing as well as in Delhi on that very day the incident happened. I spoke to the Chinese ambassador to India, Xu Feihong, earlier today about this, and he says that the version of events that the Chinese have as far as this Indian passenger is concerned are different, and I will play that out in just a moment or two. But first, on the contentions around Arunachal Pradesh, which has frequently many points of time in the past, not just in the recent past, but historically too, from the 1962 war onwards between India and China, has become a regular flashpoint over the years. We'll talk about what all of that means in the context of what seems like a thaw in the relationship. Certainly, since both Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping met last year in Kazan in Russia and earlier this year in Tianjin on the sidelines of two very important summits. But now the question is, will this incident and this new sort of spanner that China has thrown in the works around Arunachal Pradesh really complicate this relationship? But I want to first talk about what happened to this lady in question. She's an Indian lady who works in London as a financial advisor. Her name is Prema Thongdok. She's from Arunachal Pradesh. She says she's been living in London for over 10 years, but she still chose to hold on to her Indian passport. She was flying from London to Japan, and there was a 3-hour layover in Shanghai. That is where she claims that she was singled out. Even as she was waiting to clear security, she was singled out by the immigration and security officers at the airport, the Shanghai Pudong International Airport, and she claims that she was harassed. She was held at the airport for 18 hours after she had already traveled 12 hours from London, and when she asked them what the issue was, they simply said that her passport was issued in Arunachal Pradesh, it's an Indian passport, and that China does not recognize Arunachal Pradesh. They then, she claims, forced her to take an alternative flight because she missed her connecting flight, forced her to take an alternative flight via Bangkok back to India. Now, top MEA sources have told CNN News 18 that upon intimation of this particular incident and the harassment meted out to this Indian passenger who was in transit in Shanghai, New Delhi reportedly lodged a strong protest. A démarche was made with the Chinese side both in Beijing as well as here in Delhi on the very same day that this incident took place. The Indian consulate in Shanghai also took up this matter locally. They extended full assistance to the stranded passenger. In fact, when I spoke to her, she also mentioned specifically about how Indian officials in the mission in Shanghai were quick to reach the airport and help her out of this stressful situation. Also, it has been stressed that the passenger had been detained on ludicrous grounds. Arunachal Pradesh is indisputably Indian territory, and its residents are perfectly entitled to hold and travel with Indian passports. It's also been highlighted that the actions of the Chinese authorities are in contravention of the Chicago and Montreal conventions relating to civil aviation. I want to go across to the lady in question, Prema Wongjong Thongdok. Thank you very much, ma'am, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Can you tell us what exactly happened to you? You know, you were in transit from London through Shanghai. You were going to Japan. Can you tell our viewers what exactly happened on this October day when you were making this transit? You had a valid transit visa. Why did the airport authorities in Shanghai hold you back? And what did they say to you?
Thank you. Basically, I was traveling on holiday from London Gatwick Airport to Japan, and I had a transit in Shanghai for about 3 hours. Now, just to clarify, I know that, there are many international rules, etc., when it comes to travel. So I have actually traveled the same route, transiting in Shanghai 1 year ago. And because it was the first time that I was transiting via China, I actually called up the Chinese embassy in London and ensured and asked them whether a transfer was okay on an Indian passport. And they obviously did not have any objections. All they said is you can transit easily if it is less than 12 to 24 hours. Now, I can't exactly remember the hours, but it should have been an easy transit, and which I did last year on the 16th of October 2024. So this time around, went past the e-gates, quite successfully and was queuing up in the security gates when one of the Chinese immigration officers came and singled me out of the queue. Not explaining anything, but just telling me to come out of the queue and basically India, India, China, and showed me my picture on, what they got on the e-gates and took me to the immigration counter desk.
Okay.
After a lot of questioning, basically, what's the matter? What's the issue? I have a connecting flight. I'm only transiting. I'm not entering China. She goes on to point at my passport and say, Arunachal, not part of India, China, China, invalid passport, which obviously was a shocking and humiliating event because obviously all my life I have known that Arunachal is part of China, part of China, but India, and we don't identify as Chinese in any way.
But tell me something. You said you traveled on the same passport in the same airport, transited through the same airport in Shanghai. You were going to Japan in 2024 as well. At that time, there was no issue. But suddenly in 2025, when this happened, they sort of confronted you and they stopped you, and you were not allowed to board your connecting flight. So did you not sort of bring this up with them?
Exactly. And the fact that they don't even give you a stamp, so I don't actually have any proof to say that I've transited as well, which is quite easy on their part. But I looked through my previous tickets and everything, and I found that actually I did pass through exactly Shanghai Pudong Airport last year and without any inconvenience.
So when this happened, and when you showed them your passport saying you transited through the same airport, what else did they say to you, and why were you being held back? Because, like you said, there is no written rule or there is no law, particularly for transits, that you be stopped anywhere in the world if you have a valid visa to the country that you're going to.
Yes, I did. I mean, I told them I transited, but they just wouldn't take no for an answer. Like they just would keep on repeating, Arunachal is part of China, not India.
All right. So then you sort of reached out to the Indian consulate officials there. How did they help you? When did they get to you? Tell us what happened thereafter.
Yes, after a long time actually, because their Wi-Fi doesn't work in their plane and sorry, in their air side. Because technically, I'm not on Chinese territory because I haven't crossed over to the land side. I was still in the air side of the airport, and they basically did not have access to Google, so I couldn't find the number, in fact, of the Indian embassy in Shanghai. So after a lot of hours, actually, because the first couple of hours I kept going up to them, asking them, they would just dismiss me. I did not have access to food. I couldn't go to other terminals. I couldn't get out of that particular area to go and buy myself food. They didn't bother or care about that. They just said there's a dispenser for water near the toilets. You can go there to drink water. But after about 8 to 10 hours is when basically 10-12 hours is basically when I said to them, look, this is getting out of hand. You've made me miss both my connection flights to Japan. I need to speak to my family. I'm totally cut out from the world. Nobody knows I'm stuck here because I don't have access to WhatsApp or anything. Like in China, all these apps don't work. They don't even allow Google. So I need to speak to a lawyer or I need to call home. So then they gave me a landline to ring, and I rang my friends in London who gave me the Indian embassy's number, which
Okay.
I then called, and the Indian officers basically quite grateful to them that they came over within an hour of speaking to them. But unfortunately, the end result was the same because then they said to me, and the Chinese embassy said, the Chinese immigration and the airline would say, go back to your country or go back to UK. After 12 hours flight, being held for 18 hours, I could not imagine taking a 12-hour flight back to
Okay.
London, especially without food and without rest.
All right,
So
ma'am, I'm really sorry about what you had to endure and what you had to go through at the Shanghai airport in transit. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. And things are seen to be normalizing between India and China, marked by the resumption of direct flights between India and China. There's been diplomatic exchanges that happened between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, first in Kazan in Russia on the sidelines of the SCO summit last year, and then in Tianjin earlier this year, again on the sidelines of the SCO summit. There was that famous photograph of Modi, Xi Jinping and Putin, which went viral on the sidelines of the Tianjin summit. But could this recent controversy around Arunachal Pradesh and the fact that an Arunachal person from Arunachal Pradesh of Indian origin was stopped at the Shanghai airport, could this throw a spanner in the works? Because China's response to this entire incident is something that raises eyebrows as well. Beijing continues to maintain that Arunachal Pradesh is disputed territory, but New Delhi has made it clear there is no question whatsoever that Arunachal Pradesh is not Indian territory, and they've also clarified on what happened to this individual. In fact, let's look at the past instances where China seemingly has meddled on the question of Arunachal Pradesh. This would not be the first instance where China has meddled into Arunachal and claimed it as its own territory. China has attempted to redraw the boundaries many times in the past. Just in the last 6 years alone, Beijing has renamed places inside Arunachal Pradesh 4 times. A diplomatic map misadventure which was met with a strong rebuttal from New Delhi. PLA troops attempted transgressions near the Yangtze as well as in Taiwan, testing India's preparedness and its resolve, only to be given a befitting reply by the Indian troops. Meanwhile, across the border, China accelerated the construction of new air bases, hardened aircraft shelters, helipads, even entire border defense villages, as they call them. An infrastructure build-up designed to shift the ground realities. Diplomatically, too, the provocations continued with stapled visas that were issued to residents of Arunachal Pradesh, a subtle but pointed challenge to their Indian identity. India then, too, fought back. China has also objected repeatedly to visits by India's top leadership to Arunachal Pradesh, be it Prime Minister Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah, or Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh. Even when the Dalai Lama had visited some years ago, China had made an issue of it, but India has made it stand clear that Indian leaders and our guests, whether it's the Dalai Lama or anyone else, will go to wherever Indian citizens live. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sue. I believe that this is the first TV interaction that you're having with any Indian news television. So thank you for coming over to our CNN News 18 studios. Thank you. As you're aware, since the Kazan summit, when both the leaders met, Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, the process of disengagement has begun at the borders. It was a 3D process: disengagement, de-induction, and then demilitarization. What is your assessment of where that process is? Because India's assessment seems to be that it's going rather slow.
So thank you very much for your question. I'm today very happy and this honor to come to this CNN News 18 to have this opportunity to talk with the audiences and also talk with you. So in regard of your question about the border issue, you know that in recent years, the situation in the border area between our two countries has remained stable and peaceful. And China and India, we have kept very close communication through diplomatic and military channels. In August this year, that the two special representatives of our two countries had their 24th round of talk on the border issue, reaching a 10-point consensus. And recently, that the two militaries had their 23rd Corps Commander level meeting. You know that they are in regard of the management and control of the western sector of the border, and they in fact that had very in-depth communications on the border issue. So the border issue is a very complex and very sensitive issue. And it indeed takes time to resolve it. But I believe that China and India, as two ancient civilizations, we have sufficient wisdom and capability to maintain the peace and tranquility in the border areas and find a fair, reasonable, and mutually acceptable solution. So China is ready to work together with Indian side in accordance with the important consensus by our two leaders to strengthen the normalized boundary management and control, to carry forward the process of the management and de-escalation, and jointly maintain the peace and tranquility in the border areas. However, you know that the border issue is not the entirement of the overall relationship of our two countries. And I just hope that we would handle the bilateral relationship from a strategic and long-term perspective, placing the border issue in the proper place in our relationship and not defining the relationship by the border issue and preventing the specific differences from affecting the mutual cooperation and exchanges.
I want to ask you about some of the other changes that have happened in the last year since the meeting in Kazan. You've decided, of course, to resume the pilgrimage, the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. There are now direct flights between Indian and Chinese airports. There are more people-to-people exchanges. You mentioned about Chinese tourists now getting visas. What do you think is the next step in this process of normalization?
So people-to-people exchange is a very important way to increase the mutual understanding between our two sides. And currently, China-India relations are enjoying a very good momentum of development and improvement, providing a broader space for the people-to-people exchanges. In fact, that the exchanges between the peoples and the exchanges between the hearts in particular are endless and boundless. And the communication, you know, that I just hope that in the coming year, the communication between our two countries will be strengthened in such areas as education, culture, political parties, youth, think tanks, and etc. And the mutual exchange of resident journalists will be resumed as soon as possible. So as ambassador to India, I sincerely hope to see that more Chinese businessmen will come to India to conduct business with Indian counterparts, and more Chinese tourists will come here to experience the unique culture and ancient civilization of India, just like the Taj Mahal, like the Ajanta caves, Ellora caves, all those, you know, that historical sites. And I fully believe that one day, when the two peoples of our two countries can exchange visits, like visiting relatives, the friendship and vibes between our two peoples will be strengthened, and the confidence and the trust between our two sides, two countries, will be enhanced.
You mentioned in your speech about how trade between India and China, trade from India to China has been increasing. How would you address the concern around trade deficit? What is it that China is doing or Chinese companies are doing for India's exports? You said the number is 10% every month. It's been increasing since April.
Yes. So just I mentioned that India's export to China is increased month by month, and in October it is increased by more than 40%. Just like I will give you an example that just like the iron ore, India's iron ore export to China increased by 170%. And the cotton yarn exported to China increased by 240%. These are the very specific examples of the increase of India's exports to China. But in fact, that China have stopped the intention to seek the trade surplus. It is decided the market rules by the market rules. So we just hope to see that more Indian marketable products will be introduced to Chinese consumers, and we just hope to see that more Indian products to the Chinese market And we just encourage that more Indian companies will go to China to attend the Shanghai Import Expo and the other, that many other fairs and expos.
You mentioned Shanghai, so there's this news story that has just come. It's my final question to you. This Indian lady who was passing through the Shanghai airport claims that she was stopped and she was not allowed to transit, even though she says she had valid visa to go through to Japan. Is there any comment that you would like to offer on that incident?
So this afternoon, in fact, that the spokesperson of the Chinese Foreign Ministry answered the question raised by the Indian journalist in Beijing. So the spokesperson made it very clear on this issue, and I do not want to repeat it. But I would say that between China and India, we have an issue that is the border issue. It means that the border issue remains to be solved. We have some disputed areas between our two countries. And both of us have made our own claims on these disputed areas. And in fact, that both China and India, we have held very strong insistence on our own positions. So that's why we have the very important SR special representatives on the border issue to have the border negotiations. And that's why that the border issue is so important to both of us and addressed by the two leaders in their bilateral meetings. And I fully believe, just as I said, that we have sufficient wisdom to find a solution to the border issue. And in regard of this Indian lady in Shanghai, so the spokesperson has stressed that her interests have been fully protected, and she was properly treated with a proper venue and food in Shanghai, and that this is what I know from the spokesperson.
Right.
Thank you.
Ambassador Su Fei Hong, thank you very much for joining us on CNN News 18, and thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi today hoisted the sacred flag on top of the Ram Temple, formally marking the completion of this monumental construction. The historic ceremony was followed by a defining message from the Prime Minister. He said that India must now achieve complete freedom from the colonial mindset. He reminded the nation by 2035, it will be 200 years since Macaulay's framework, which attempted to disconnect India from its cultural roots. He urged the country to take a national resolve to break free from the mindset of slavery which William Macaulay had imposed. He also set a focused 10-year time frame to reverse this lingering gulami mansikta, or slave mentality, as he put it. So what exactly is this Macaulay mindset which Prime Minister Modi referred to? A mindset that viewed British customs and values and Western systems as the ideal, almost treating Indian culture as inferior to what the West has to offer. It promoted English-based learning as the only civilized form of knowledge. It undermined India's own intellectual traditions. Even after political control weakened, the psychological influence remained in asking people to believe that progress meant imitating the West. Local languages and knowledge systems were dismissed, making generation after generation feel that their mother tongues were unfit for higher learning. Ancient practices and philosophies were portrayed as backward, causing many to distance themselves from their own cultural roots.
और बात भी महत्वपूर्ण है, और वो है गुलामी की मानसिकता से पूरी तरह मुक्ति। आज से 190 साल पहले 190 साल पहले साल 1835 में 1835 में मैकाले नाम के एक अंग्रेज ने भारत को अपनी जड़ों से उखाड़ने के बीज बोए थे। मैकाले ने भारत में मानसिक गुलामी की नींव रखी थी। 10 साल बाद यानी 2035 में उस अपवित्र घटना को 200 वर्ष पूरे हो रहे हैं। कुछ दिन पहले ही मैंने एक कार्यक्रम में आग्रह किया था कि हमें आने वाले 10 वर्षों तक उस 10 वर्षों का लक्ष्य लेकर चलना है कि भारत को गुलामी की मानसिकता से मुक्त करके रहेंगे।
So here are some excerpts that capture the tone and substance of William Macaulay's highly influential minute on Indian education. Macaulay famously claimed that a single shelf of European library was worth all the native literature of India and Arabia, dismissing centuries of Sanskrit, Arabic and Persian literature, philosophy and science as essentially worthless compared to European texts. Macaulay claimed that Sanskrit literature was inferior to even basic English school texts, using this to justify diverting funds from institutions that were teaching classical Indian languages. Macaulay highlighted Hindu rituals and abstract concepts to ridicule them, portraying the belief system as superstitious and primitive compared to Western philosophy. Macaulay also dismissed Indian science and Indian mathematics as so backward that it would make English schoolgirls laugh, using this to argue for replacing native knowledge systems with European science. So the grand Dhwaj Arohan ceremony concluded in the Ram Temple complex in Ayodhya. This brings to a culmination, a conclusion of the 3 ceremonies that were set in motion, with the groundbreaking ceremony that happened some years ago, the Pran Pratishtha that happened in 2024, and today the culmination of the completion of the Ram Temple complex in Ayodhya with the Dhwaj Arohan. What does this mean? And also the comments that the Prime Minister made while speaking at this Dhwaj Arohan ceremony, saying that almost 200 years ago, there was a British man who made a decision for then colonial India, from which, the shackles of which certainly we seem to be not able to break out of. And if India needs to be Viksit Bharat by 2047, then we need to break out of this Macaulay mindset. That's what the Prime Minister said. Let's try and make sense of this by speaking to Amish Tripathi, one of India's most well-known authors in English of history, of mythology. Thank you very much, Amish, for speaking with us. First of all, the Dhwaj Arohan. Why is this so important? Why is this the culmination of the completion of the Ram Temple complex? What is today's sort of events signify to you?
Well, when the Dhwaj goes up, when the Dhwaj Arohan happens, essentially, the temple is complete. So this is, of course, a critical and a celebratory moment for all of us, Indians. There's a lot of symbolism to the Dhwaj as well. As I'm sure, you've explained to your viewers the symbols on it, the Om symbol, which of course all of us know, Surya, because the Ikshvaku dynasty, Lord Ram's dynasty, they were Suryavanshis, and the Kovidara tree as well. These were actually the symbols of the Ayodhya kingdom. This has been mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana as well, these marks. So, and it wasn't mentioned in the later Ramayana. I don't know why was that memory forgotten, but it was there, this mark and the Kovidara tree in the Valmiki Ramayana, which is of course the original, most ancient Ramayana. So in a way, it's not just the completion of a temple, it is also a revival of a civilizational memory through the symbol. On the symbols on the Dhwaj as well. So I think it's poetic, it's civilizational, it is India reviving itself and yet doing it in a modern way. The temple has been built with modern tech. L&T has done a brilliant job out there. So it's the ideal mix of both, which India does so well. But civilizational memory and modernization.
Tell me this. I found the comments made by the Prime Minister, part of his speech that he gave at this Dhwajarohan ceremony, quite interesting, where he said, and he's sort of touched upon this theme earlier as well, that somehow we Indians seem to be still stuck with this Macaulay mindset that we need to go back to our civilizational roots, this whole clutching on to English and this colonial thinking. We're still not able to shed it even after 75 years of independence. What do you think he means by that?
Zaka, I can't say I'd read the entire speech, but I did read parts of it. I don't think the Prime Minister was anti-English. He was pro-Indian languages. So to put it in a Hindi way, I'm a Hindi bhashi. Hindi ka prabhav bura nahi hai, Hindi ka dabav bura hai. And that is the balance that ideally we need to strike. In many parts of the world in the last 2.5 centuries, as the West has been so dominant, often modernization has come to mean westernization. Now, the reaction to this by many different non Western countries has been on two extremes. Countries like Turkey, when Kemal Ataturk negated their traditions completely and went wholesale westernized. That was one approach. The other approach is what you see in some countries, like what Pakistan attempted, where they will reject modernization completely, and go back like 1,000 years culturally. Either of these two extremes are not good. What the Prime Minister, I suspect, was suggesting that we should modernize without westernizing, which means reform the things that need to be reformed. Like, for example, from this temple itself, the original Shilanyas was done by Chopalji, who was a Dalit Hindu, which is a reform to sadly the caste discrimination and the caste rigidities that had emerged in India in the last 1,000, 1,500 years, as Dr. Ambedkar had written in Who Were the Shudras. This was a good reform. But that doesn't mean we throw away everything. There are things that must be revived, must be celebrated, and we should celebrate that as well. Essentially, an ideal mix, modern and yet Indian.
When he said this Macaulay mindset or this Gulami mindset, slavery mindset, I think it was not necessarily just about English. I think it was also about, we need some kind of Western approval or Western, the white man still has to approve of your ideas, your thoughts, your processes and so on. And if you look at the history of the last 70, 75 years, here in our own backyard, I mean, countries like Japan, post-Second World War, or China in the last 20, 30 years, the Southeast Asian tigers have all, modernized, but not necessarily stuck to a colonial thinking or a colonial mindset. Do you think in India's case that's possible, or our history is different?
I would agree completely with the Prime Minister here. The slave mentality manifests in various ways. The obsession with fair skin, for example, is a reaction. The modern Indian obsession with fair skin is a reaction to the invasions of the last 1,000 years, because our invaders were largely fair skinned. The Turks were fair skinned, as were the British, Portuguese, French, Dutch. And our ancient culture did not celebrate fair skin, was not anti fair skin, was not anti dark skin. Draupadi Ma was dark skinned, as we all know, and was considered very beautiful. Lord Shiva was fair skinned. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad spoke of prayers for a fair skinned or a dark skinned child, and both were celebrated. So that is one example. There are so many others. I could argue that perhaps even yoga has become popular now. Because many Westerners have discovered it. 30, 40 years ago, I come from a traditional family, so we did yoga, when it was not fashionable to do yoga, and we would have probably been called Ponga Pandits, for that. This constant seeking of Western approval and seeing ourselves from a Western lens has to be done away with. Another example, so many educated Indians believe that India was not a country before the British came, which is again not true. There are enough textual evidences from the Vishnu Puran to various others, to prove that India was indeed culturally a nation. But that does not mean that we should not reform things that need reforming. I will stress, on that again. Okay. For example, till 1 or 2 generations back in some communities, this thing of Kala Pani, that you should not cross the seas, was actually a very, very strict thing. You would lose your community. Jaat Bahishkar hota tha. That has fortunately declined now. It was a good reform, because in ancient times we were a seafaring civilization.
Correct.
This thing that we do not convert others to our culture, that's not really true. How did Southeast Asia become Hindu in the first millennium? And I would argue, even if that concept came in, who's stopping us from influencing others with our culture? This could be a new reform that could come in. So modernize things that need modernizing, but keep the best of the old. And ideally, one would hope for an India the way our ancestral India was, which was robust, vigorous, outgoing, seafaring, confident, and yet not domineering.
Okay.
That balance. We shouldn't be defensive.
All right. Amish, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on CNN News 18. Thank you. A 6-year-old boy was severely injured in northwest Delhi's Prem Nagar after a neighbor's pet pit bull attacked him while he was playing outside his home. The incident captured on CCTV showed the boy chasing a ball when the dog broke free and bit the boy and tore off his right ear. The pit bull's owner has been arrested and a case has been registered for negligent conduct with respect to animals and rash or negligent act endangering life and safety of others. The dog has been sent to a shelter, but the child is currently undergoing treatment and remains in critical condition. I believe that the entire right ear of the child was bitten off by this dog. There's no reason why pit bulls and Rottweilers and other ferocious breeds of dogs should be kept as pets at all by anyone. To start off in the first place. But let's listen into what some of the family members of this young boy have said in response to this attack.
ये मैं यहाँ कुर्सी पर नहीं बैठा था, मैं दुकान के अपने संडे के दिन था कल, और कल मैं 3:15 के आसपास मैं देखा बच्चा खेल रहा है बॉल के साथ, बॉल खेलते खेलते वहाँ लेने गया, इतने देर में सडनली जो कुत्ता है वो कुत्ते ने बच्चे को झपटने के बाद भाई उस बच्चे को खींचा उधर तक, बच्चे ने भाई अपना को छुड़ाने की कोशिश की, छूटा नहीं क्योंकि बच्चा छोटा था और कुत्ता बड़ा था। हाँ, इससे पहले इंसिडेंट हुए हैं अपने पीछे कॉलोनी के अंदर का हुआ है, ये पीछे लड़का खड़ा है, यहाँ पे इसके जो है लड़के के साथ भी इंसिडेंट।
Now, in a move to try and address this rising incidence of death caused by aggressive dog attacks, the central government had asked for states for a ban on imported breeds and the sale of certain ferocious dog breeds in early 2024. Some of these breeds include Rottweiler, Pit Bull, Terrier, Wolf dogs, and Mastiffs, which are all deemed to be dangerous for human life. The Department of Animal Husbandry and Dairy had sent a letter to all states urging the local bodies to refrain from issuing licenses or permits for the sale or the breeding of these ferocious breed of dogs. Now, they've also emphasized the need for sterilizing these dogs, particularly these ferocious breeds that are already kept as pets, to prevent any further breeding of those dogs. And yet, what we see in society after society, residential colony after residential colony, is incidents such as this, where ferocious breed of dogs like pit bulls and terriers and Rottweilers are kept as pets by individuals, and then they harm other individuals in the neighborhood, in the society, in the residential colony. What can we do to put an end to this? Ashwini Dubey, advocate of the Supreme Court, is now joining us. Mr. Dubey, so there were individual state directives that these ferocious breed of dogs should be banned, should not be kept. A, nobody is actually listening to it. And two, why can't we have a nationwide ban on this?
Yes, there is a need for a will, and that will by the municipal bodies, the state governments, and the local bodies which are responsible for managing, saving the people from the menace of the dogs. The Supreme Court order is very much clear. A bench led by Justice Vikram Nath, 3-judge bench, have categorically on November 7 have outlined that there has to be certain do's and don'ts. The municipal authorities must ensure that the dog menace should not be there, and no individual should be affected by this menace of the dogs. And the Supreme Court has categorically there was no need for any order because the constitution says that the people should be saved from the dog attacks and other animal bites. Number two, when the Justice Pardiwala judgment came, there was a lot of hue and cry.
Yeah.
People started saying that no, they should be given the equal treatment. It is not that one bite is treated the rabies is going by washing the by water or the soaps or number of things. Then the Supreme Court made it clear that no, from the educational institutions, from public places, from highways, from hospitals, you have to remove it, number one. Number two, you have to make a mechanism from all over the country. Why still the government authorities are reluctant about the public health, public safety and safety of the minor children? It is not one incident. Jaka, if you see the order of the Supreme Court, number of things have been mentioned in the Supreme Court, number of incidents have been mentioned in that order.
No, so what is the nub of the issue? That the local governments, local bodies, municipal corporations don't want to act, they don't have the will to act, or they are up against this powerful sort of animal lover, dog lover kind of lobby? What's the issue?
Both things are there. The political will is not there. Number one. Number two, the government officials do not want to work because there is no political will, number one. Number two, the government bodies or the officials who are responsible for things, they think that if they will take individual decision, then the people will be against them. Article 246 subclause 3 says the state shall manage preservation, protection, improvement of livestock, prevention of animal disease and veterinary training practice, where we see. And number two, the fundamental rights of those animal lovers is at your doorstep or my doorstep. They will feed in public. The designated places which should have been by this now, the government and the RWAs and the all public institutions should have earmarked. As of now, nothing has been done. So what should we do? The government, the constitutional mechanism, the constitution.
But yes. Tell me, Mr. Dubey. So the centre had sent this draft circulated in 2024, where breeding and sale of 24 breeds of dogs were to be banned by the CBIC. These include pit bulls, terriers, Rottweilers, the ferocious breed of dogs. There were 24 of them. The centre had written to various states and local bodies saying that the sale and breeding of such dogs should be stopped, and that the states and UTs should be directed to ensure that no licenses are issued. But none of the states have responded to this. None of the states have acted on this.
Because there is no mechanism, there is no check and balance. Unless the government bodies come and start putting heavy fine, imposing heavy fine for those who violates this, the people will violate it. And see, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act nowhere says that the public should be the cruelty and mandates will happen with the humans. Animal birth control rules, would time and again is being cited, that also is not complied with. See, sterilization, vaccination, do we see on the roads? No. The stray dogs, which should have been taken by this now, the stray dogs are still roaming. And now what we have seen, a 6-year-old child playing outside his house. It means nobody is safe nowhere. Yes.
So let me come back to Justice Pardiwala's judgment. There was a lot of hue and cry around it. The animal lovers went back to court. The court then had to modify its order. Where do things stand now? Because I don't see anything has changed. The order came, there was a deadline set, and then the court itself was sort of forced to clarify its order, modify, some would even say even dilute its order.
August order has not been, leave Justice J.B. Pardiwala's order, even the 3-judge bench, because Justice Pardiwala's order was with respect to Delhi NCR. But the scope and ambit of that order extended to whole of the country. That is why the three chief secretaries were even called by the Honorable Supreme Court to say why you have not filed an affidavit in the court. What else the states need? Number one. Number two, why there is no will to save the public? Number three, it is not cruelty to the animals. It is where the minor children, the school-going children, the common man who is walking on the road should be saved from these dogs. And now if you see pet animals are attacking, you understand, you see the Honorable Justice Pardiwala has taken cognizance of an incident which happened in Gurgaon where a pet animal attacked a lady.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
But here, despite that, nothing is happening. And who should be responsible? I and you do not have powers. Moment we start asking them, those dog lovers, that why you're feeding them here at my doorstep, they will start fighting. And that will lend to the court, because maximum women or the girls are protectors of these dogs. And nobody wants to.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Mr. Dubey, for joining us. Mr. Ashwini Dubey from the Supreme Court advocate, giving us his perspective into the story. We'll see how this plays out over the next few days and months. I want to move to our final story in the international segment, where Japan has now moved missiles to within 100 kilometers of Taiwan. This is a move to try and protect Taiwan in case there is an armed attack on Taiwan by China. Now, this entire controversy has been blowing up over the last few weeks after the new Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi made some comments earlier this month in the Japanese parliament, where she was asked a question by an opposition lawmaker: what would Japan do if China were to attack Taiwan and it was a survival-threatening situation? In this instance, there is a particular clause in the Japanese constitution that allows the deployment of Japanese military if it is a survival-threatening situation. And the Japanese Prime Minister said that yes, there would be a response from Tokyo. But then there was massive reprisal, massive backlash from Beijing. China has asked tourists not to go to Japan. There is some consideration of banning seafood imports from Japan. So much so, this has now become the subject of a phone call between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping last night, and earlier this morning between Donald Trump and Sanae Takaichi. I explore this a little bit more because we could see yet another huge flare-up between these two Asian rivals who have fought a number of wars over the last many hundreds of years between these two Asian rivals and neighbors. This is a little more into this topic. Japan's new Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi met with Chinese leader Xi Jinping just last month in South Korea on the sidelines of the APEC summit. It was a warm meeting full of bonhomie and handshakes. But now, just a few weeks later, the relationship between Beijing and Tokyo has come off the rails. Xi Jinping and his wolf warriors have unleashed a wave of reprisals against Japan over a recent comment made by Prime Minister Takaichi about defending Taiwan. Beijing considers Taiwan as an unfinished part of its history, which it hopes to reunite with the mainland someday in the not-too-distant future. This dispute poses an early test for Sanae Takaichi, who took office just last month, the first ever woman to serve as Prime Minister in Japan's history. As a lawmaker, she was a vocal critic of Xi Jinping, criticizing China's militarization of the South China Sea. She even once visited Taiwan to show solidarity with its leaders. Taiwan is a self-governed island, a democracy which is home to 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductor manufacturing. Takaichi has her task cut out. She has to avoid an escalation with China while still projecting strength at home. Nobody expected that her tenure would begin with a full-blown row with China, but now she has to manage the damage. The challenge is how to de-escalate without appearing to cave into China or appearing to back down.
Since
there are issues and challenges between Japan and China, I believe we should reduce them and increase understanding and cooperation. Japan remains open to various forms of dialogue with China. We have not closed any doors. It is important that within this context, Japan insists its positions where necessary. We will continue to respond appropriately based on this stance.
The Chinese government has urged its citizens not to visit Japan, and that would sap a major source of tourism. About 7 million Chinese tourists visit Japan every year. Beijing has also signaled this week that it might move to restrict the import of Japanese seafood, particularly Japanese shrimp. China has also dispatched its Coast Guard ships last week to patrol around the disputed islands, which China calls Diaoyu and the Japanese call Senkaku. These are disputed islands in contested waters which are claimed by both countries. Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump also had a telephone call this week, the first since their meeting in Busan last month. The issue of Taiwan did come up in that call, with Xi Jinping reminding Trump that Taiwan was an unfinished part of the post-Second World War order and that it needs to be restored. China desperately wants to take Taiwan and break through the US First Island chain. The First Island chain stretches from the Kuril Islands in the north all the way through Japan, the Ryukyu Islands, Taiwan, and eventually ends in the northern Philippines. This serves as a natural geographic barrier that restricts China's access to the broader Western Pacific and also is a cornerstone of American strategy to contain China's naval expansion. It goes all the way back to the Cold War. A Chinese naval blockade or an invasion of Taiwan would be a direct assault on this barrier. It would be highly dangerous for American national security. Taiwan anchors this strategy. Taiwan is often described as an unsinkable aircraft carrier. An invasion would escalate a full-blown war as Chinese forces could seize Taiwan's ports and its airstrips, and that would enable forward bases for strikes on American assets, whether in Japan or in the Philippines. China views this as US-led encirclement. But seizing Taiwan would flip this dynamic on its head. It will allow China to project power beyond its coast, and that would threaten American sea lines of communication for up to 80 or even 90% of Japan's energy imports, as well as global commercial routes. If Taiwan falls, then the US will be forced to retreat to its second island chain, which is in Guam and Palau, and that would be at great cost to American security.
日方在与中国台湾邻近的西南诸岛部署进攻性武器，刻意制造地区紧张，挑动军事对立。联系到日本首相高市早苗的涉台错误言论，这一动向极其危险，需要引起周边国家及国际社会的高度警惕。
Japan is indispensable as America's linchpin in Asia. It hosts more than 50,000 American troops. It provides logistics, intelligence, and access to military bases for America. In a Taiwan invasion scenario, Japan could invoke collective self-defense and help the United States through anti-submarine warfare in the Miyako Straits. Japan's defense build-up, including its decision to buy Tomahawk missiles and also increase military spending to 2% of GDP, will be essential for it to defend itself against Chinese interests and Chinese hegemony. And therein, Japan's decision to move missiles just barely 100 kilometers off the coast of Taiwan is a critical defensive move. China has a record of economic coercion. During the dispute that happened between China and Japan over these disputed islands back in 2010, China limited the export of critical minerals to Japan, including rare earth metals. Chinese state media urged boycotts of South Korean companies who were operating in China in 2017 when South Korea decided to install an American missile defense system. This latest dispute between China and Japan began early November when Sanae Takaichi was fielding questions in the Japanese parliament. A lawmaker from a rival party asked her about potential survival-threatening situations. Now, this, under Japanese law, allows the deployment of the country's military forces. Takaichi said that an attempt by China to blockade or seize Taiwan, which is less than 70 miles from Japan, would invite a response from Japan. No previous Japanese prime minister has said so explicitly. This led to a major backlash by China. Takaichi later said that her remarks did not constitute a change in Japanese policy, but her comments provoked a furious response from Beijing, something that she is struggling to control even now, well after 2 weeks after those comments were made.
They define excellence and then go further. They are invincible icons that inspire billions. Chosen by an eminent jury through a rigorous selection process.
Incredible. I'm in awe. I'm inspired.
It's an assembly line of brilliance.
Who will be crowned CNN News 18 Indian of the Year 2025? Stay tuned to the grand finale, 28th November, 6 p.m. onwards on CNN News 18. Presented by RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, Growing Legacies, Wardrobe Partner, Reed & Taylor, Bond with the Best. Powered by Reliance Industries Limited, in association with HDFC Sky. Make money matter. Explore more. Express more. LIC, Har Pal Aapke Saath. And Polycab, India's safe, happy connection. This is News 18 Net. The all-new Hyundai Venue, take up, go beyond.
Motorola Edge 60 Pro. Hello, Moto.
The all-new Hyundai Venue, take up, go beyond.
Fenesta Windows, beautiful and durable designs. Installation से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस. आपके घर में Fenesta नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए.
Buying finer Fenesta.
I killed my plants.
Ah, bummer. Try putting them in the shower.
On it. Am I supposed to be in the shower with them?
Definitely not.
The all-new Motorola Razr 60, dangerously cool.
Motorola Edge 60 Pro.
Hello, Moto.
फिनेस्टा विंडोज, ब्यूटीफुल एंड ड्यूरेबल डिजाइन्स, इंस्टॉलेशन से मेंटेनेंस की लाइफ लॉन्ग कस्टमर सर्विस। आपके घर में फिनेस्टा नहीं है तो कॉल कीजिए।
Find finer Finesta.
I killed my plants.
Ah, bummer. Try putting them in the shower.
On it. Am I supposed to be in the shower with them?
Definitely not.
The all-new Motorola Razr 60, dangerously cool.
Motorola Edge 60 Pro.
Hello, Moto.
आनंदीबेन पटेल राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ के परम पूजनीय सरसंघ चालक डॉक्टर मोहन भागवत जी, आनंदीबेन पटेल राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ के परम पूजनीय सरसंघ चालक डॉक्टर मोहन भागवत जी, उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री योगी आदित्यनाथ जी, श्री राम जन्मभूमि तीर्थ क्षेत्र ट्रस्ट के अध्यक्ष पूज्य महंत नृत्य गोपाल दास जी, पूज्य संत समाज, यहां पधारे सभी भक्तगण, देश और दुनिया से इस ऐतिहासिक पल के साक्षी बन रहे कोटि कोटि राम भक्त, देवी और सज्जनों, आज अयोध्या नगरी भारत की सांस्कृतिक चेतना के एक और उत्कर्ष बिंदु की साक्षी बन रही है। आज संपूर्ण भारत, संपूर्ण विश्व राममय है। हर राम भक्त के हृदय में